Where the presidential candidates stand 6 months before the election. 10 more Boeing whistleblowers step forward. And Biden calls Japan xenophobic. Then more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Breaking news. An emotional support alligator is missing in the swamps of Brunswick, Georgia. The alligator, named Wally, was apparently stolen and thrown into someone's yard in order to scare them. Animal control was called, Wally was captured and then released into a swamp. After nearly 2 weeks, Wally is still missing, and the owner and all of Wally's fans on social media are asking locals for help in locating him and returning him home. Our thoughts and prayers are with Wally and his family. I'll keep you posted the minute we hear an update. Speaking of cold-blooded predators, lawyers for Hunter Biden say they plan to sue Fox News over a series the network ran about Hunter Biden's alleged crimes. The series included leaked images of the type that have been known to break our producer. The attorneys claim the images were used to defame Mr. Biden and paint him in a false light. Of course, the only paintings Hunter Biden wants to be associated with are the ones he made that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars each, definitely because of his skill and no other possible reason. Wouldn't want to defame him now. Fox pulled the series off their website. They say they're within their constitutional rights to air such a program, but they are reviewing the concerns that have just been raised and, out of an abundance of caution in the interim, have taken it down. I don't blame them for being scared. I'm sure Hunter hired a real crack team of lawyers, mostly because he misunderstood what type of a crack team he was hiring. I sure hope that joke doesn't get me sued. Speaking of the Bidens, the U.S. presidential election is officially less than 6 months away. In calendar time, that is. In how it feels to live through the constant bombardment of stories, analysis, predictions, and fear-mongering in the media saying, we know we said the last 6 presidential elections were the most important of our time, but this time we really super-duper mean it. Time feels more like, about 19 and a half years till the election. Presidential elections shouldn't age the populace like a presidential term. So how would the candidates fare if the election were to happen today? According to an ABC News/Ipsos poll this week, of the 2,200 people polled, while most trust Biden to do a better job handling health care and abortion access, Trump leads in trust on virtually every other issue. Most polled said they trust Trump to do a better job handling the economy, inflation, immigration, and gun violence. Yes, gun violence. I don't know why that's a concern. It's not like Democrat-led states and cities are seeing a rise in crime due to their policies, right? But according to a USA Today Suffolk University poll released this week, Trump has lost support among young Hispanic voters and Biden has gained support with black voters. I guess Biden's policy is working. And by his policy, I mean...
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Foolproof. Trump's campaign put out an ad targeting black voters in Georgia.
Biden can still count on your vote, right?
Things were better before Biden. I'm voting for Trump.
But this ad was pulled from Google for reported policy violations. This isn't the first time Google and YouTube have pulled Trump ads for violating their policies. In 2019, at least 300 Trump ads were pulled for allegedly being misleading. Because we can't have advertisements that are misleading. Everybody knows that whenever I squirt even a drop of Axe body spray on my neck, gorgeous girls chase me down. But hey, I'm sure Google had perfectly good reasons to pull Trump's ad. Maybe it wasn't diverse enough. If Gemini is any indication, that's got to be a major policy violation for Google. After receiving backlash for pulling the ad, Google reversed the decision and reinstated it. Google has gotten pretty good at responding to backlash. They've gotten a lot of practice recently. Thanks, Gemini. And speaking of, Trump is also catering to white voters, saying he vows to fight the anti-white feeling in the U.S. Anti-white feeling? What on earth could he mean? Maybe I should Google that. Speaking of AI, after the break, AI in this year's elections. Welcome back. Democrats, afraid of falling behind Republicans, are trying to determine the best way to use AI tools in the lead up to the November elections.
Democrats have been wrestling with how to use tools that have largely been associated with disinformation.
Think about the campaign that does not have digital staff at all, and therefore really doesn't have a digital content program. Like, generative AI allows them to have one, and a pretty robust one if they want to.
Great. As if robocalls weren't bad enough, they're going to start using actual robots. it's a delicate balancing act. AI can be used to help us be more efficient and ultimately improve our lives. But in the wrong hands, it can be used to spread false information and other shady things. A tool that could theoretically be useful, but more often than not spread lies. Sounds like 90% of Congress. Are they robots? Quick, ask every member of Congress if they can spot the traffic lights in this image. Democrats are especially grappling with how best to use AI because they're afraid of falling behind technologically and having a repeat of 2016, when Trump won in large part due to his campaign taking advantage of social media. Well, that and going up against a Democratic candidate that many weren't very enthusiastic about or believed in. Boy, I bet Democrats are relieved that's not something they have to worry about this year. It's interesting because politicians are looking at how to use AI in their political ads, while at the same time politicians in several states all across the country are passing laws requiring political ads that use AI to disclose this and include disclaimers. It's like how influencers on Instagram are required to tell people when one of their posts is a sponsored ad. And what is a politician, after all, but the ultimate influencer, minus the butt thirst traps? Well, I stand corrected. The judge in Trump's classified document case delayed the trial indefinitely because pre-trial litigation has yet to be resolved. And his Georgia election interference trial is also being delayed because a Georgia appeals court granted Trump's request to reconsider Fani Willis's disqualification as the district attorney overseeing the case. But while those trials were delayed, Trump violated a gag order during his so-called hush money case for the 10th time, resulting in a total of $10,000 in fines. The judge said fines apparently aren't a deterrent and threatened to jail him for his next offense. Surely jailing Trump would stop him and not galvanize him all the way to another presidential term. Speaking of Trump's so-called hush money trial, it continued this week with testimony from adult film actress Stormy Daniels, who took the stand and graphically, and I mean graphically, detailed her alleged sexual encounter with the former president, leading the jury to think, what a horrible day to understand English. A second Boeing whistleblower died contracting a sudden illness shortly after expressing safety concerns about the company's 737 MAX airliner. The whistleblower, Joshua Dean, was only 45 and said to have lived a healthy, active lifestyle before contracting influenza B and MRSA, developing pneumonia, and dying. Man, these Boeing whistleblowers are conveniently, coincidentally dropping like flies, if those flies were manufactured by Boeing. 10 more Boeing whistleblowers are now stepping forward. Wow, who knew working at Boeing made people so suicidal? Meanwhile, Boeing canceled the launch of its crewed Starliner spacecraft, citing safety concerns. But I'm sure Boeing will fix the issues on the ship and offer those 10 whistleblowers a free trip into space. I'm sure they'll make sure it's nice and safe for them. President Biden says the U.S. would stop supplying weapons to Israel if their army launched a full-scale invasion of Rafah, a Gaza city where the Israel Defense Forces believes Hamas is fortified, along with 1.5 million sheltering civilians.
If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah. We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks. But it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons.
This drew criticism from Republicans as well as some Democrats who feel America is abandoning an ally and that Biden is doing this to appease the far left during an election year. They're saying he's doing this just to make some voters happy? I don't believe that at all. Mainly because polls show Biden is the least popular president in 75 years, so clearly he doesn't know how to make people happy. Israel wasn't the only American ally Biden upset this week. At a campaign event, Biden lumped Japan and India with Russia and China, calling them xenophobic nations. Biden says they're struggling economically because they don't welcome immigrants into their countries and workforces. As you can imagine, Japan wasn't super stoked to hear this. Japan is a close ally to the U.S., and Biden just threw them under the bus? Why? To defend himself amid criticism that he's letting in too many illegal immigrants? Also, a major criticism of Trump is how he alienated our allies. What is Biden doing? Well, on the bright side, we have only another 19 and a half years until the November election. Ugh. I might need to get my own emotional support alligator. Especially because my usual mode of decompressing, video games, are now another source of stress thanks to an invasion of DEI consultancy groups and what's being called Gamergate 2.0. Learn all about it on my other channel, Gamers Unbeaten. And America Uncovered wouldn't exist without your support. Click that orange button to support us on Patreon. All it takes is $1 an episode, and you can set a monthly limit. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.